right, welcome back, history students, to today's historical analysis. Instead of just reading about the past from some dry textbook, we're going to visually unpack one of the absolute most audacious events of the entire 20th century. We aren't just looking at a run-of-the-mill crime today, folks. We are meticulously dissecting the theft of £2.6 million. And to put that into perspective, that's a staggering sum worth over $50 million in today's money. So grab your notebooks because we're going to break down the logistics, the psychology, and the sheer audacity of what went down on one incredibly fateful night in England. So here's the syllabus for today's case study. First up, setting the stage. Second, the anatomy of the plan. Third, we'll look at the tactical execution. And finally, the unsolved legacy. Okay, Section 1. Setting the stage. A dark night in 1963. Picture this. It's a Royal Mail train tearing through the pitch-dark English countryside. The cold winds are howling outside, but inside, the staff aboard are completely freak air. I mean, they're sipping tea, chatting, and operating under this absolute conviction that a moving train carrying tons of government wealth is essentially a perfectly safe, untouchable fortress. There's no way anyone gets to them, right? But outside, hiding out in the freezing darkness, a highly organized, heavily armed gang is actively preparing the ultimate trap. It's literally a textbook collision of institutional complacency on one side and hyper-focused criminal intent on the other. Which brings us right into Section 2, Anatomy of the Plan, months of preparation. Now I really want to slow down our pace right here, class, because the planning, is the absolute core focus of today's lecture. Heists of this magnitude do not just happen by accident. The actual robbery, well, that took just minutes, but the groundwork, that took months. This gang engaged in rigorous, almost obsessive intelligence gathering. They were essentially running a military-grade reconnaissance mission on a civilian target. They somehow cultivated an inside postal informant, a guy known only as the Ulsterman. And through him, these robbers mapped out absolutely everything. We're talking the train's specific routes, the exact timings down to the literal second, and all of the security blind spots. They left zero logistical details to chance. But the time they actually stepped foot near those tracks, the whole heist was already mathematically solved in their heads. So just imagine the suffocating tension on the actual night of the operation. After all those months of meticulous, painstaking planning, the gang is just lying in wait. They're crouched near Bridego Bridge in the dead of night. The trap is completely set. And all that's left is for this totally unsuspecting train to blindly rush right into the jaws of their snare. And that leads us to Section 3, Tactical Execution, Minutes of Chaos. All right, so the waiting is over. Everything they planned over those long, tedious months is about to be unleashed in this clinical, explosive sequence. And they started by tampering with the railway signal system in just a brilliantly simple way. Get this. They literally just covered the green light with a glove and used a standard 6-volt battery to artificially power the red light. The train driver, following strict safety protocols, obviously screeches to a halt. And the absolute second that train stops, boom, masked and armed robbers flood the engine and the carriages, instantly taking the driver and the staff hostage. The staff had literally zero time to even process what was happening, let alone react. The gang bypassed everything else, went straight to the designated carriage holding the treasure, and rapidly loaded these incredibly heavy bags of money into a waiting truck. They systematically dismantled the train's defenses and stole millions of pounds in just a few adrenaline-fueled minutes. And then, just like that, it was over. The tactical phase concluded with a flawless, ghost-like getaway. They melted right back into the dark English countryside, completely vanishing to their carefully chosen hideout, Leatherslade Farm, to divide up the spoils. They just left behind a group of completely stunned, terrified railway workers in the dark. Now for Section 4, the unsolved legacy, the nationwide panic. So the sun comes up, right? And the quiet darkness of the countryside is very quickly replaced by sheer morning panic and blaring police sirens. £2.6 million had vanished overnight. The scale of this crime completely shocked the entire world. It was so audacious, so incredibly perfectly planned, that the press immediately slapped it with a title that would be etched into criminal history forever: the Great Train Robbery. I mean, it wasn't just a theft anymore. It became this instant legend of brilliant anti-heroes outsmarting the stuffy establishment. As you can imagine, the investigation that followed was this massive, desperate nationwide hunt. For months, the police were completely baffled, mainly because the robbers had planned their escape just as thoroughly as the heist itself, leaving the authorities basically chasing shadows. But over the years, the gang's meticulous plan was finally undone by, well, one totally staggering mistake. Actually, scratch that, it's almost comical. While they were hiding out at Leather Slade Farm, the robbers had played a game of Monopoly to pass the time, using the real stolen money. And when they finally fled that farmhouse, they left the entire Monopoly board behind, absolutely covered in their fingerprints. It gave the police the massive break they so desperately needed. Slowly, methodically, they managed to round up several members of the gang. But crucially, many of them absconded, taking their secrets and their massive share of the millions with them forever. So, students, I want to wrap up today's lecture with a final thought for you to chew on. How does a gang execute a massive heist and just vanish, leaving the entire world guessing decades later? Well, it all comes back to the absolute brilliance of their preparation phase, using that inside knowledge to completely defeat the security apparatus of an entire nation. The Great Train Robbery remains one of the most daring, mysterious, and meticulously planned crimes in human history. Think about the logistics, the sheer audacity of it, and that enduring mystery. All right, class dismissed. I'll see you in our next analysis.